If your legs feel different at night after 55, don't ignore this, because what happens when you lie down is often revealing something your body has been dealing with all day. You may notice cramps that come out of nowhere, tingling or numbness in your feet, legs that feel heavy or restless, or feet that stay cold even under the blanket. Most people treat these as separate problems, but they're often not separate at all. They're connected. And more importantly, they're not random. During the day, your body is constantly moving, even in small ways. That movement helps circulation, nerves, and muscles stay balanced. But at night, all of that stops. And when it does, the body reveals what it couldn't show while you were active. That's why these symptoms feel stronger when everything is quiet. Not because they started there, but because that's when they finally become visible. Most people miss this completely. They treat the cramp, ignore the pattern, and the cycle repeats. The good news is that these signals are often early, not late, which means you still have time to support your body properly. But there is one daily habit that makes almost all of these symptoms worse, and most adults over 55 do it every single day without realizing it. Why these signs become more common after 55. Many people notice this before they ever talk about it. You stand up from the couch and your legs feel slower than they used to. After sitting for a while, the first few steps feel stiff, heavy, and strangely delayed. At night, your calves or feet seem more noticeable than they did a few years ago. And the easy explanation is to call all of it just age. Aging does change the body, but not in random ways. Blood vessels can lose some flexibility, and circulation may become a little less efficient. Muscles also recover more slowly, especially when long hours of sitting become routine. Nerves can become more sensitive to small changes in pressure, position, and blood flow. After 55, the body often speaks more softly at first, but more often. That is why common and harmless are not the same thing. A symptom can be familiar and still be a useful warning sign. One weak myth in senior health is that gradual discomfort never deserves attention. But the signal behind the signal is often reduced movement, reduced support, or a pattern building over time. The practical question is not, am I just getting older? But, what keeps showing up, and when? Starting today, notice what your legs feel like after sitting, walking, and lying down. This week, pay attention to whether the heaviness is worse in the evening or after long periods of stillness. A simple test is to stand up, walk for 1 minute, and notice whether the legs loosen or stay sluggish. If gentle movement improves the feeling, that tells you something useful about circulation and muscle support. If symptoms are new, suddenly worse, or clearly one-sided, that deserves medical attention sooner rather than later. This is not about becoming afraid of every ache or change. It is about reading your body with a little more respect and a little less dismissal. Many adults over 55 adapt quietly for years before they realize a pattern has formed. And once you start seeing the pattern, the next signs become much easier to understand. Because nighttime symptoms in particular often reveal what the daytime keeps hidden. Why nighttime reveals symptoms that stay hidden during the day. During the day, your body gets little bits of help without you even noticing. You stand up, walk to the kitchen, shift in a chair, and move down the hallway. Those small movements keep the calf muscles working like a gentle pump for circulation. They also change pressure on nerves and joints often enough to prevent signals from building. So what feels quiet by noon may feel much louder after dark. Night changes the rules in a very simple way. You lie down, stay still longer, and remove much of the movement that helped you earlier. That means blood flow patterns can feel different, especially in the lower legs and feet. Nerves that were mildly irritated during the day may become more noticeable in the silence, and muscles that were coping well enough may start reacting once they fully relax. This is why people often misread nighttime symptoms as random. They think the bed caused the problem when the pattern was building all day long. The weak myth is that if a symptom appears only at night, it must not matter much. But the signal behind the signal is often reduced circulation, accumulated tension, or poor recovery support. A useful filter is to ask whether the same feeling shows up after long sitting during the day too. Tonight, notice what happens in the first 20 minutes after you lie down. This week, pay attention to whether changing position helps quickly or only briefly. A simple test is to take a short, easy walk before bed and compare how your legs feel later. Another easy option is gentle ankle circles or calf stretches before getting under the covers. If symptoms become intense, frequent, or start waking you regularly, that pattern deserves attention. None of this means your body is failing the moment nighttime feels different. It means the quiet of the evening often exposes what movement kept covered up. That is why bedtime can become a useful window into circulation, muscle recovery, and nerve sensitivity. And once you understand that, the next signal makes a lot more sense. Because one of the clearest nighttime warnings after 55 is a cramp that comes out of nowhere. Warning sign number 1: nighttime calf cramps. This is one of the most unforgettable signals on the list. You are asleep, the room is quiet, and then your calf suddenly locks up hard. The pain is sharp enough to pull you out of bed in seconds. You sit up, grab the muscle, stretch the leg, and wait for it to release. And for a moment, your whole night revolves around that one spasm. A cramp like this is not always mysterious. Muscles need steady support from hydration, circulation, and balanced nerve signaling to relax well. After 55, long sitting, lower fluid intake, and slower recovery can make that support less reliable. It is a bit like a wire tightening too fast when the system around it is under strain. The cramp is sudden, but the setup behind it often builds quietly through the day. One isolated cramp may mean very little on its own, but repeated cramps can be a sign that the muscle is not getting what it needs consistently. A common mistake is to blame only potassium and miss the bigger daily pattern. The signal behind the signal may be low hydration, too much sitting, muscle fatigue, or reduced circulation. A practical filter is simple. Notice whether the cramps follow inactive days, heavy days, or poor sleep nights. Starting today, drink fluids steadily earlier in the day instead of waiting until late evening. This week, try a short walk, gentle calf stretch, or ankle movement before bed. An easy option is to flex the foot upward for a few seconds when the calf feels tight. You can also notice whether the cramp happens in both legs or keeps returning to one side. If cramps become frequent, severe, or come with swelling or weakness, talk to a clinician. The important thing is not to panic every time a cramp wakes you up, but it is also wise not to brush off a pattern that keeps repeating in the dark. Small signals become easier to understand when you keep learning how the body connects them. And if these calm, practical breakdowns help you make sense of what you are feeling, stay close to this channel. Because the next sign is quieter than a cramp, but many adults notice it even more often. Warning sign number 2: tingling or numbness in the feet. A lot of people notice this only after they get into bed. Your feet are under the blanket, the room is warm, but something feels slightly off. It may feel like pins and needles, a light buzzing, or a dull, sleepy feeling in the sole. You move your toes, shift your ankle, change sides, and hope it settles down. And sometimes it does, but sometimes it keeps coming back night after night. The feet are often where small changes show up early. They sit far from the heart and depend on tiny blood vessels and delicate nerve endings. After 55, even mild changes in circulation, blood sugar patterns, or nerve sensitivity can become easier to feel there. Think of the feet as a place where subtle messages tend to arrive before louder ones do. That is why the signal may seem small, but still be worth paying attention to. The mistake is assuming numbness always means you just slept in a strange position. Sometimes that is true, especially if it fades quickly and rarely returns. But the signal behind the signal may be reduced blood flow, nerve irritation, or a pattern that is becoming more consistent. A good filter is to notice whether it also happens after long sitting, driving, or crossing your legs. If it keeps showing up in ordinary situations, it deserves more respect than a one-time annoyance. Starting today, notice whether the feeling improves with movement or lingers even after you walk. This week, avoid sitting too long in one position without changing the angle of your knees and ankles. A simple test is to stand, walk for 2 minutes, and see whether warmth and sensation return more clearly. You can also try gentle ankle circles before bed to wake up the lower leg muscles. If numbness becomes persistent, spreads upward, or affects balance, bring it up with a clinician. This is one of those signals people often normalize for too long. Not because they do not care, but because it seems too small to count. But the body rarely starts with a billboard when a quiet message will do. And once tingling or numbness joins the picture, another clue often shows up beside it. That next clue is when the feet stay cold, even when the room is not. Warning sign number 3. Cold feet even when the room feels warm. Sometimes the house is comfortable, the blanket is on, and your feet still feel cold. You rub them together, pull on thicker socks, and wait for the warmth to catch up. But the feeling lingers longer than it used to, especially late in the evening. It is not dramatic, yet it keeps getting your attention in small, quiet ways. And many people dismiss it simply because it seems too ordinary to matter. Cold feet can be about more than temperature alone. Blood does not just carry oxygen through the body, it also carries warmth. When circulation becomes less efficient, the farthest areas may feel that change first. After 55, that can happen more easily when movement drops and vessels respond less quickly. So the feet may feel cool, even when the rest of you feels reasonably comfortable. The weak myth is that cold feet are always just poor circulation and nothing more. Sometimes that is part of the picture, but the pattern can also involve nerve sensitivity or blood sugar shifts. The signal behind the signal is that your lower legs may not be getting steady support as easily as before. A useful filter is to notice whether the cold feeling improves after walking or stays the same. If warmth returns with movement, that gives you a practical clue about what may be driving it. Starting today, pay attention to when your feet feel cold and what you were doing before it began. This week, try standing up and walking for a few minutes before reaching for extra layers right away. A simple option is gentle ankle pumps or calf raises during the day to support better blood flow. You can also avoid sitting still for long stretches with your feet tucked under or legs crossed. If one foot is much colder than the other, or the change is sudden, that deserves prompt medical attention. This is one of those signals that can look small, but still be informative. Your body often starts with comfort changes before it moves into stronger symptoms. And that is why these patterns deserve calm observation, not automatic dismissal. Because once cold feet enter the picture, another sign often follows close behind. That next sign is when simple effort starts making the legs feel unusually heavy. Warning sign number 4. Legs that feel heavy after simple effort. This is one of the most frustrating changes because it shows up during very ordinary moments. You walk through the grocery store, climb a few stairs, or stand in the kitchen for a while. Nothing about the task seems extreme, yet your legs begin to feel dense, tired, and overworked. It is not always sharp pain, and that is exactly why many people keep brushing it aside. They tell themselves they are simply out of shape, when the pattern may be more specific than that. Heavy legs often reflect a support problem more than a strength problem. Your muscles need steady blood flow, oxygen, and coordinated nerve signaling to keep effort feeling smooth. After 55, that support may become less efficient, especially when long sitting and low daily movement become normal. It is a bit like asking an engine to pull well when the fuel delivery is slower than it used to be. The legs can still move, but they do not feel as light, responsive, or willing under simple demand. What this often indicates is not pure weakness, but reduced efficiency in the movement system. A common mistake is to think, "My legs are failing," when the real issue may be slower circulation and poor endurance support. The signal behind the signal is that the muscles may be working harder than they should for small tasks. A practical filter is to notice whether the heaviness improves after a few minutes of steady walking or gets worse quickly. If the legs warm up and loosen slightly, that points to one kind of pattern, not a random collapse. Starting today, pay attention to which activities trigger that heavy feeling most reliably. This week, break up long periods of sitting with short movement, even if it is only a walk across the room. A simple test is to compare how your legs feel on a day with frequent movement versus a day spent mostly seated. An easy alternative is calf raises while holding a counter, especially if a full walk feels like too much. If heaviness is paired with swelling, chest symptoms, sudden shortness of breath, or one-sided pain, seek care promptly. There is an important difference between normal fatigue and a pattern that keeps reducing your confidence. When the legs feel heavy after simple effort, the body may be asking for better support, not surrender. That is why calm observation matters more than self-criticism in this stage of life. And once heaviness becomes part of the picture, sleep is often affected next in a quieter way. Because another warning sign appears when the legs do not hurt exactly, but still refuse to settle down at night. Warning sign number 5. Restless legs when you are trying to fall asleep. This sign is difficult for many people to describe, but they know exactly how disruptive it feels. You get into bed, turn off the light, and expect the body to begin settling into sleep. Instead, your legs feel strangely unsettled, as if they do not want to stay still for long. You shift, stretch, bend one knee, straighten the other, and keep adjusting the sheets. It is not always pain, yet it can be just irritating enough to keep sleep out of reach. That restless feeling often has less to do with imagination than people think. The nervous system, circulation, and muscle tension all help determine whether the legs can fully relax. After 55, those systems may become more sensitive to inactivity, poor recovery habits, or long sedentary stretches. It can feel like the body is asking for movement at the exact moment you want it to be quiet. And that is why the symptom can seem so odd, even though the pattern behind it is often understandable. What this usually indicates is not simply bad sleep habits in the lazy sense people assume. A weak myth is that restless legs at bedtime are just nervous energy and nothing else. But the signal behind the signal may include reduced circulation, accumulated muscle tension, low iron in some cases, or greater nerve sensitivity. A practical filter is to notice whether the feeling appears mainly at rest and improves, even briefly, with movement. If walking the hallway or stretching helps for a few minutes, that tells you the body is responding to input. Starting tonight, notice whether the restlessness begins the moment you lie down or only after being still for a while. This week, try a short walk after dinner, gentle calf stretching, or slow ankle circles before bed. An easy alternative is a warm shower or a heating pad used safely for a few minutes on tense calves. It also helps to reduce long blocks of sitting earlier in the day, especially in the late afternoon and evening. If the sensation becomes persistent, intense, or repeatedly ruins sleep, it is worth discussing with a clinician. Poor sleep can make every other body signal feel louder the next day. That is why this pattern matters more than many adults first realize. When the legs refuse to settle, the body is often revealing a deeper issue with relaxation, support, or circulation. And once that nighttime restlessness begins showing up, another clue often appears by evening as well. That next clue is when your socks leave deeper marks and your ankles look slightly fuller than they should. Warning sign number 6. Deep sock marks or mild swelling by the end of the day. Some people notice this only when they finally sit down and take their socks off. The elastic line looks deeper than it used to, and the ankle seems a little puffier by evening. Your shoes may feel tighter at night than they did in the morning, even if you did not walk that much. It can seem minor, almost cosmetic, especially when the swelling is not dramatic or painful. But the body often uses mild end-of-day swelling as one of its quieter ways of showing that return flow is struggling. Your lower legs spend the entire day working against gravity. To keep blood and fluid moving back upward, the body depends on veins, calf muscles, and regular movement. After 55, that system may become less efficient, especially if long sitting, standing still, or low activity become part of the routine. Think of it like traffic that still moves, but more slowly, with more backup by the end of the day. By evening, the ankles and lower legs may be the place where that slowdown becomes easiest to see. What this often indicates is not always a dangerous emergency, but it is never meaningless when it becomes a pattern. A common mistake is to dismiss swelling simply because it goes down overnight and seems gone by morning. The signal behind the signal may be prolonged sitting, weaker calf pump activity, salt-heavy meals, certain medications, or circulation that needs more support. A practical filter is to notice whether both ankles swell mildly after inactive days, or whether one side looks clearly different. Patterns that are mild and symmetrical often suggest one kind of issue, while sudden one-sided swelling deserves faster attention. Starting today, notice what your ankles look like at the same time each evening for several days in a row. This week, try getting up more often during the day, even for a short walk through the house every hour or two. A simple option is seated ankle pumps or gentle calf raises while holding a chair if standing for long is uncomfortable. You can also compare how your legs feel on days with more movement versus days spent mostly in a chair. If swelling becomes sudden, painful, one-sided, or comes with redness or shortness of breath, seek medical care promptly. This is one of those signs that teaches you how connected daily habits really are to leg comfort. The body often gives small end-of-day clues long before people think of asking better questions. And when you learn to notice those clues early, you give yourself more room to respond calmly and wisely. If these step-by-step explanations are helping you connect dots you had been ignoring, this is the kind of channel worth keeping nearby. Because the next sign often shows up the moment you stand after sitting still too long, and it tells a very clear story. Warning sign number 7. Pain or stiffness when you stand up after sitting too long. This is the kind of sign people often laugh off, even when it keeps happening every day. You sit in the living room, at the kitchen table, or in the car for a while, then stand up. For the first few seconds, the legs feel stiff, slow, and not fully ready to cooperate. Sometimes there is a dull ache behind the knees, in the calves, or deep in the thighs. You take a few careful steps, wait for the body to catch up, and then things begin to loosen. That first rough moment after sitting is not just about getting older in some vague way. When you stay still too long, the calf muscles stop helping blood move upward as efficiently. Joints also stiffen, connective tissues cool down, and nerves can become more sensitive to position changes. After 55, the body often needs a little more transition time when it goes from stillness to movement. So the discomfort is not random at all, even if it seems small enough to ignore. What this often indicates is a system that does not like long periods of immobility anymore. A common mistake is to treat that stiffness as harmless rust instead of useful body feedback. The signal behind the signal may be reduced circulation, lower flexibility, muscle deconditioning, or mild joint irritation building quietly over time. A practical filter is to notice whether the stiffness fades after 1 or 2 minutes, or stays with you much longer. The faster it improves with gentle movement, the more it points toward a pattern of inactivity and reduced support. Starting today, stop thinking only about exercise sessions and start thinking about movement breaks. This week, try standing up at regular intervals instead of waiting until the body feels locked in place. A simple test is to compare how your legs feel after 30 minutes of sitting versus after 90. An easy alternative is seated ankle pumps, light knee extensions, or a short walk across the room before stiffness builds. If getting up becomes increasingly painful, unstable, or associated with weakness on one side, it should be evaluated. Many adults adapt to this so gradually that they forget what smooth movement used to feel like. But the body is often being honest here. It wants more rhythm, not more punishment. Small periods of movement repeated through the day can matter more than one burst of effort once in a while. And once you understand that, the next part of the picture becomes impossible to miss. Because there is one daily habit that quietly makes nearly all of these leg symptoms worse. The daily habit that quietly makes nearly everything worse. There is one habit that worsens leg symptoms so quietly that most people never blame it. It happens in the recliner after lunch, in front of the television, at the kitchen table, and in the car. You sit down for what feels like a short break, then 1 hour quietly becomes 2 or 3. Nothing dramatic happens in that moment, so it does not feel like a real health decision. But too much sitting is often the silent background pattern behind heavy, stiff, restless, and swollen legs. The legs depend on movement far more than many people realize. Each time you walk, shift, or rise from a chair, the calf muscles help push blood back upward. That small pumping action supports circulation, tissue comfort, and the overall feeling of lightness in the legs. After 55, when vessels are less flexible and recovery is slower, that movement becomes even more valuable. Without it, the whole system can begin to feel sluggish long before it feels truly painful. That is why sitting too much is not just a harmless rest habit. The weak myth is that if you are not overexerting yourself, you must be protecting your legs. But the signal behind the signal is often underuse, not overuse, especially when symptoms worsen after long stillness. A practical filter is simple. Ask yourself whether your worst leg moments tend to come after inactive stretches. If the answer is yes, then your body may be responding more to immobility than to age alone. Starting today, build movement into the spaces where sitting usually takes over your day. This week, stand up every hour, even if all you do is walk to the hallway and back. A simple option is 10 calf raises while holding a counter, followed by 1 slow minute of walking. An easy alternative is ankle pumps in the chair if standing feels difficult at first. The goal is not exercise perfection, but giving the legs a steady reminder to keep working. This is where many adults begin to feel relieved rather than discouraged. Because if sitting has been part of the problem, then small movement breaks can become part of the solution. That means the pattern is not random, and it is not beyond your influence. And once you see that, the next mistake becomes easier to understand. Because what happens before bed often determines how loud these symptoms become during the night. The bedtime mistake many people make without realizing it. Here is a pattern that sounds harmless, but often sets the stage for a rough night. A person moves too little all day, drinks less water than the body really needs, eats a heavy dinner, and goes straight to bed. Nothing in that routine looks dramatic, and that is why it slips under the radar so easily. But by the time the head reaches the pillow, the legs may already be carrying the consequences. The bed did not create the problem. It simply revealed what the day quietly built. Your nighttime comfort depends heavily on what happened in the hours before sleep. If the body has been inactive too long, circulation may already be slower by evening. If dinner was very salty or heavy, fluid balance and leg comfort may feel worse by bedtime. If hydration was poor all day, muscles and nerves may be more sensitive once the body gets still. So the night becomes less a mystery and more a final chapter of the day's habits. This is where many people focus on the wrong target. They blame the mattress, the pillows, or the exact sleeping position while missing the larger pattern. The signal behind the signal may be a full day of under-movement, low hydration, heavy food, and no transition into rest. A practical filter is to compare your better nights with your worse ones and ask what changed before bedtime. Often, the answer is not found in the bedroom alone, but in the routine leading up to it. Starting tonight, avoid going from a long stretch of sitting straight into bed without any movement at all. This week, try a calmer dinner, lighter evening salt intake, and 5 to 10 minutes of gentle walking after the meal. A simple option is calf stretches, ankle circles, or slow walking in the house before you get ready for sleep. You do not need a complicated bedtime routine. You just need to stop handing the night a tired, stagnant body. If nighttime symptoms are repeatedly worsening despite these changes, it is worth bringing that pattern to a clinician. This matters because the body usually prefers preparation over repair at the last minute. A better evening rhythm can quiet several of the signs we have already covered. And one of the most overlooked reasons those nighttime symptoms flare up is surprisingly simple. Because after 55, many adults begin underestimating hydration without even noticing it. And that quiet shift can change far more than thirst. The hydration shift many adults underestimate after 55. After 55, a surprising number of people begin drinking less water without fully realizing it. Sometimes thirst feels weaker, so the body asks more quietly, and the habit slowly changes. Sometimes people avoid fluids on purpose because they do not want more trips to the bathroom. And sometimes coffee, tea, milk, or juice quietly replace plain water without much thought. What feels like a small adjustment can end up changing how the legs feel by evening and overnight. Hydration matters because muscles, nerves, and circulation all depend on fluid balance to work smoothly. When the body runs a little low, muscles may become more sensitive and less willing to relax properly. Nerves can feel more irritable, and the overall system may respond less calmly to long periods of rest. After 55, even mild dehydration can show up more clearly because recovery is slower and reserves may feel thinner. It is like asking the body to move and recover well while giving it less of the support it depends on. This does not mean every cramp, tingling spell, or heavy leg night comes down to water alone. The weak myth is that hydration is either perfect or irrelevant, with nothing meaningful in between. But the signal behind the signal may be that your baseline fluid intake is just low enough to matter. A practical filter is to notice whether rough nights happen more often on busy days when you barely drank. That kind of pattern is easy to miss until you start connecting the dots with a little more honesty. Starting today, spread fluids through the day instead of trying to catch up late at night. This week, notice whether your legs feel different on days when water intake is steadier from morning onward. An easy option is to keep a glass or bottle in the places where you usually sit the longest. You do not need to force extremes. You just want more consistency and fewer long, dry stretches. And if these steady, practical reminders are helping you notice what your body has been trying to say, that alone makes this channel worth staying connected to. Hydration will not fix every issue, but it often changes the background conditions more than people expect. That matters because the body usually responds better to steady support than to last-minute correction. When fluids improve, some adults notice fewer cramps, calmer legs, and a little less nighttime discomfort. And that leads us into the next important question, which is where many people start making expensive mistakes. Because once symptoms show up, the urge to buy quick solutions can become stronger than the urge to read the pattern. The quick fix trap: buying relief before understanding the pattern. This is where many smart adults start spending money before they start gathering useful clues. A cramp wakes you up, your feet tingle again, or your ankles look a little swollen by evening. So you search for a cream, a pill, a gadget, or a supplement that promises fast relief. That reaction makes sense, because discomfort naturally makes people want a shortcut back to normal. But when you chase relief before understanding the pattern, you can end up treating the surface and missing the reason it keeps returning. The body usually responds better to support than to guesswork. A product may help in some cases, but it cannot replace movement, hydration, sleep rhythm, and careful observation. After 55, symptoms in the legs often come from several small factors working together rather than one dramatic cause. That is why a single purchase rarely fixes what daily habits have been quietly shaping for months or years. Quick relief can feel satisfying in the moment, but it often delays the better question: what keeps setting this off? This does not mean every supplement or tool is useless. The mistake is assuming that if something is marketed for cramps, circulation, or nerve comfort, it must fit your situation. The signal behind the signal may still be too much sitting, poor evening habits, low fluid intake, or a symptom that actually needs evaluation. A practical filter is to ask whether you have identified your triggers before reaching for another product. If you do not yet know when the symptom appears, what worsens it, or what improves it, you are still missing the map. Starting today, write down 3 things before buying anything new: when the symptom happens, what came before it, and what helped. This week, focus first on the low-cost supports that actually teach you something, like walking more often, hydrating earlier, and easing into bedtime. A simple option is to test one change at a time for several days, instead of changing 5 things and learning nothing. An easy rule is this: measure patterns first, then decide whether extra help is really needed. And if you are considering supplements or compression products, it is wise to run that by a clinician who knows your history. There is something empowering about refusing to panic shop your way through body signals. It puts you back in the role of observer, not just consumer. That shift matters, because calm clarity usually leads to better decisions than discomfort-driven guessing. And once you stop chasing every promise of fast relief, the next question becomes much clearer. How do you tell the difference between a common leg warning sign and one that deserves more serious medical attention? When a common leg symptom stops being common and deserves faster attention. Most leg symptoms after 55 are not emergencies, and that is important to say clearly. But there is also a point where a familiar symptom stops being routine and starts asking for faster attention. That is where many people get stuck, because they do not want to overreact or waste anyone's time. So they wait, watch, and hope the body will make the answer more obvious on its own. Sometimes that patience is reasonable, but sometimes it allows an important signal to sit too long. What changes the meaning of a symptom is usually not just the symptom itself, but the pattern around it. A mild cramp now and then is different from cramps that suddenly become frequent, intense, or hard to explain. Light evening swelling in both ankles is different from swelling that appears quickly in only one leg. Cold feet in winter are different from a sudden color change, unusual pain, or a clear loss of sensation. The body often gives better clues through contrast, speed, and asymmetry than through intensity alone. This is where mature observation matters more than guessing. A common mistake is to judge a symptom only by how dramatic it feels in the moment. But the signal behind the signal may be the fact that it is new, one-sided, rapidly worsening, or happening with other changes. A practical filter is to ask 4 simple questions. Is it sudden? Is it severe? Is it one-sided? And is it paired with something else? That something else could be weakness, redness, unusual warmth, shortness of breath, chest discomfort, or trouble walking normally. Starting today, stop using the word normal too quickly when your body clearly feels different. This week, make note of symptoms that are new, clearly stronger, or no longer following the same familiar pattern. A simple rule is that gradual, symmetrical, and movement-related symptoms often allow calmer observation, while sudden and uneven ones do not. An easy safety habit is to tell someone close to you when a symptom changes sharply, especially if you tend to minimize things. And, when in doubt, it is better to check a meaningful change than to keep negotiating with it in silence. There is wisdom in staying calm, but there is also wisdom in knowing when calm should become action. The goal is not to become fearful of every signal, but to stop treating all signals as if they belong in the same category. That kind of discernment protects independence better than either panic or denial ever will. And once you can tell the difference between a quiet pattern and a sharper warning, the next step becomes much simpler. Because now it is time to organize everything into a practical 7-day reset you can actually follow. A simple 7-day reset to help your legs feel more supported again. When people notice these symptoms, they often think the answer has to be complicated. A full new routine, a perfect diet, a long exercise plan, and a stack of products can start sounding necessary. But that kind of overhaul usually creates more pressure than progress, especially when energy is already inconsistent. What works better for most adults is a simple reset that helps the body feel safer, steadier, and better supported. Not dramatic, just organized enough to reveal what actually helps your legs over the course of a week. The idea is to give your body better inputs in a pattern it can respond to. After 55, the legs often do better with rhythm than intensity, and with repetition more than heroic effort. That means more movement spread through the day, steadier hydration, and fewer long hours of stillness. It also means a calmer evening transition, so the body does not arrive in bed tight, stagnant, and overloaded. Think of this reset as clearing static from the system, so the real signals become easier to read. Here is a practical structure for the next 7 days. Each morning, drink some water early, stand up fully, and take a short walk, even if it is only through the house. During the day, avoid sitting too long without at least a brief movement break, especially after meals. In the evening, keep dinner a little lighter, reduce heavy salt when possible, and add a few minutes of gentle leg movement. Before bed, do one simple support habit, such as ankle circles, calf stretches, or a slow hallway walk. You do not need to do this perfectly for the week to teach yourself something useful. The goal is to notice whether cramps, tingling, heaviness, swelling, or stiffness begin to shift even a little. A practical test is to write down your symptoms each evening in one sentence, instead of relying on memory alone. You may notice that the body responds faster to consistency than it ever did to random effort. And if one part feels too hard, choose the easiest version rather than quitting the whole reset. This kind of 7-day structure does more than improve comfort. It gives you a calmer sense of direction, which matters when symptoms have started to feel unpredictable. Many people feel better simply because they stop guessing and start observing with more purpose. And that is the right place to end this journey, because the final point is not fear, but clarity. The body has been speaking all along, and now you are much better prepared to understand it. If this video helped you, the next one might reveal something important about your body. Take a moment to watch it now. You may notice something you've been ignoring.